Hi, I'm Jess. Welcome to the bread tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to make a loaf of crispy French style bread. It takes 2 days, and by that I mean you're going to do a really easy step tonight before you go to bed, and then tomorrow morning when you get up, we'll get it going and you'll have the bread ready by lunch. The dough we're working with today is a little bit different than typical bread dough. It's a lot wetter, and so we're going to use some different techniques than maybe what you're used to. And the reason for the wetter dough is just so we can get a really open crumb with nice big bubbles in the bread dough. This is my husband Jeff. He's going to be my sous chef and help me out. He's never made bread before, and he's going to give me a hand, and I'll teach him while I teach you. Let's go. Take one. I'm Jess. Hey Jeff. This is day one of bread making. This is the step you're gonna do in the afternoon or the evening before bed. I want you to start with getting 2 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour into that bowl. This first bowl we have set up here is gonna be for the bulk of our flour, and it's gonna be our soaked flour. We'll let the flour soak with the water overnight, and it'll get really stretchy and have lots of time to absorb the water. Great job. So now add another cup of whole wheat flour. This is whole wheat bread flour, and if you have bread flour at home, that works really well for this recipe. Good job. Now we need 2 teaspoons of salt. I've got sea salt here. You can use regular salt, that's fine too. Good job. And then you're gonna just use your hand to mix the 2 flours and the salt all together in the bowl really well. Okay, now we need 2/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour in this smaller bowl, and this is to create our pre-ferment, and that will have a little bit of yeast in it, and it will bubble away all night long and start developing some flavor for our bread. Okay, and for this one you just need a pinch of yeast in your hand, like a generous pinch. Get it all incorporated. Perfect. Okay, now grab some water and your 1 cup measure, and we want 1 1/3 cups of water in with the soaked flour, and I want you to fill it right to the top. And then we need 1/3 of a cup of water in with the pre-ferment. And again, right to the top. Perfect. Now grab your wooden spoon, and you're actually going to use the handle of the wooden spoon to mix the flour and the water together. And you can make some figure 8s to help incorporate things evenly. And it'll look a bit dry at first, but it will start coming together. And we want to just keep mixing it for a while until there's no more dry bits showing. You can press the dough up against the sides of the bowl to try and get some of the flour off the sides. Yeah, keep going, you're doing good. And you can use your hands a bit if it still seems a bit dry and it's not quite together. You can kind of squeeze it and fold it a little bit on itself. Yeah, fold it over like that. Good job.
Is that okay?
There can't be any dry bits, so just keep going a little more. And if it feels good, then we can move on. Okay.
Okay.
So now we do the same in the other bowl. This one won't be quite as dry, so it should come together a bit quicker. Great. So you can clean off the handle with your spatula, and then we're just going to cover these and leave them to sit on the counter overnight. And that's it until the morning. Good job, Jeff. Morning, everybody. Grab your coffee and let's get started. We need to make the perfect warm spot for the bread to rise. So I want you to turn your oven on to any temperature and then set the timer for just 1 minute. After a minute, we'll shut it off and leave the oven light on, and that'll be the perfect spot. Our soaked flour and our pre-ferment were sitting out all night, and you should be able to see the change right away. The dough's relaxed a little bit, and the pre-ferment is really bubbly. We're gonna put the two together. Dip your hand in some water and make some indentations in the dough. Now we're gonna take our half a teaspoon of yeast and sprinkle it all over the top. Add the pre-ferment. It's gonna be really sticky and bubbly. And that's had lots of time to develop flavor overnight. Now again, we want to just wet our hand to work with the dough so that it doesn't stick. And we're going to spread out the pre-ferment on the surface and then work it in by folding the dough over onto it. Just work your way around the bowl. You can press and gently fold. You have to work it for a little while just to make sure that the yeast gets mixed in evenly. Now that it's nice and smooth, we're gonna put the lid back on and leave it in the warm oven for 1 hour to rise. Things to do while you're waiting for the bread to rise: raid your Easter chocolate stash and drink coffee. I just pulled this out of the oven. It's been almost an hour, about 45 minutes, and it's definitely started to bubble away. While the dough is rising, we are gonna do what's called a stretch and fold, and we're gonna do it 3 times over the course of the dough rising. So we need to treat the dough really, really gently so that we don't break any of the bubbles that are forming. So in order to do that, just dip your hand again in water and just gently reach under the dough, pull it up a little, and fold it over. And we're just doing that 4 times, working our way around the bowl. Just like that. And then we'll let it keep rising, but this time we just keep it on the counter because now it's quite warm and it's really, the yeast has gotten going and we don't want it to rise too fast. So we'll come back to this in another 45 minutes to an hour. So this is the second stretch and fold, and Jeff's gonna give it a go. Dip your hand in the water and you can see there's lots more bubbles. The dough gets a little more billowy and we have to just treat it increasingly gently as we go so we don't deflate the dough. Perfect. So we'll cover it up, leave it on the counter, and this time just for another 30 minutes and we'll be ready to shape. Okay, so while the dough is finished rising, we're gonna get things ready for shaping the dough and baking. So you need to grab a bowl. This is what the dough is gonna rise in after it's been shaped. We're gonna line it with a towel that's floured and use it at the end. So for now, find a bowl that fits into your Dutch oven. So the bread is the right size. And we're gonna create a sling out of parchment paper to get the dough into the hot pot. So grab your bowl, trace it out, and then we'll cut that circle shape with some handles. So this will hold our dough and we can get it into our hot pot later on. So let's get our towel ready. You need a clean dish towel and you want to flour it very generously so that the dough won't stick. If you happen to have rice flour at home, rice flour works really, really well for dough so that it doesn't stick, but I'm just using regular all-purpose here. And you're gonna rub it in. Okay, so we can pick it up and carefully put it into our bowl. And that's ready to go for after we've shaped our bread. Okay, so this is the final stretch and fold. We know our dough is ready because it's risen, and we don't want it to actually rise more than about 50% from its initial volume. So I'm gonna be really gentle here and dip my spatula in some water just to ease it away from the sides of the bowl. And this stretch and fold is gonna transition right into our pre-shape for the dough. So we are going to flour the counter lightly, or generously, I guess. A little bit more. So I'm gonna wet my hand. I'm gonna very carefully fold 4 times, stretch and fold. And at the last, I'm just gonna tip the dough out onto the floured counter. And you can either use wet hands here or floured hands to just move the dough into a nice circle shape, tucking it under itself. We're gonna give that now just 10 minutes on the counter to relax a little bit, then the final shape and into the floured basket. So final shaping after it's been resting for about 10 minutes. We're gonna sprinkle the top of the dough with some more flour, and we're gonna flip it over. It probably will have stuck underneath. I'm gonna wet this. I'm just gonna lift it up and flip it over. And now, kind of get it into a square. We're gonna work around the dough, pulling the edges into the center. You have to press down just a little bit to get it to stick in the middle. Now this shaping is giving structure to the bread so that it can rise up in the oven. We're gonna flip that over and let it sit just for a moment so that it seals at the bottom where we pulled it together. And then I'm gonna flip it again into the bread basket. This. There. And that's where it will rise for 30 more minutes while our oven preheats. So this is the important part. I want you guys to turn on your oven to 450 degrees Celsius, and we're gonna take our Dutch oven and heat it up with the oven. We want the Dutch oven to be really hot when the bread goes in. And that's how we get our crispy crust. Let's get this bread into the oven. Okay, so grab your parchment, and I have a cutting board. You could use a plate for this part too, would work. So we're gonna stick our parchment on top of the bowl and use our cutting board to carefully flip the dough onto the parchment paper. You'll see how it came out. Peel back the towel and a little off the center. I think it'll be okay. There's a lot of flour in here, so we can just brush some of it off if you want. And then we're gonna score the loaf, which is a cut on the top just so that it can fully open up in the oven. I have a serrated bread knife, and I'm gonna cut on an angle if I can. And you can open it up even a little bit more. Okay, let's get that hot pot out of the oven. And we'll see how we do. And back in. And we're going to bake for the first 20 minutes with the pot covered up. The last 20 minutes of baking is uncovered.
Okay, it's done. Take it out of the oven. Just be careful, the parchment can sometimes break. Now Jess says to leave it to cool for like an hour, but honestly, that's really hard to do, and I very rarely listen to that. Hope you all enjoy it. Looks really good.